Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
Hello, this is Josh McCown, and I'm sorry for interrupting the beginning of your favorite podcast. I know, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, you're going to have to wait a second before we get started because it's time to announce something very special. Learn and grow. Have you heard this expression on the show before? Learn and grow is a time for us as a capital hacking tribe to get together, come together within the Accountable Equity Learn and Grow Mastermind Summit hosted at Renault Winery on December 2nd and actually become a community, a mastermind. Remember Jim Rohn, the great business philosopher? He said, we will become the average of the 5 people we spend time with. And wait until you see how great the people are in that room. There's a community from all over the country that'll be flying in. We'd love to have you join us. There'll be great speakers, great content, and you could be in that room. If you haven't had a chance before, please visit the accountableequity.com site, choose Learn and Grow, and register today.
Here's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Welcome back to The Big Show, the show that finally, not only did we attract you, John Edwin, to be part of this great show, but today we finally got Kamil Maras to be on. One of my earliest investors, by the way. That did not show up in the show, but I love this guy.
Yeah, Kamil gets really vulnerable in the show and transparent, and one of the most vulnerable, raw interviews we have had. And he talks about how he came from absolutely nothing and really had to build a lot of grit and was forced into that at a young age, and now has multiple roofing and siding companies, and he is really I always said, and I said it on the show, he is the example of someone who is living a life of abundance.
You did, but he's also the American dream. Came here after one of those rare people. We should actually bring this. I mean, I wish he would teach us more about this in the future when we're with him, but he lived under communism before the fall of communism in Europe and in the Eastern Bloc in Poland. And he got to watch, and he has this really unique perspective where the switch to capitalism did not work at first, right? It actually left his family destitute in a struggle, right? What a great experience. And then you taught a great lesson, John, about how you can take those adversities early on and you can rely on them later as some power, almost like a superpower. And he describes that really well. And then pièce de résistance of the show is he describes how he bought a company and how this is part of his aggregation of specialty companies, cash flowing existing businesses. He does real life. He did a deep dive here where he told you how he bought a business. Now, if it's Wall Street, they call it mergers acquisition. If it's Main Street like this, it's called buying a business. But it's basically really compelling. And I think we're going to learn a lot from this.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. It has been 5 years to get Mr. Kamil Maras on the show. And John, you helped secure this big day. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the last year since I've been the co-host, I've been kind of poking at Kamil like, hey, when are you going to be on? When are you going to be on? And, we've been friends now for 6 years. Our families have taken trips together. Kamil and myself and our wives, when we really actually just started to become friends, we were on a couples trip together in St. Augustine and had an absolute blast. So I know quite a bit about your story, and it is profound. So can you take us back, give us a little background on who you are, because you've become such a success, but you built that mental toughness, that grit, that drive at a young age.
Man, well, first of all, an immense pleasure and an honor. I'm humbled to be in your guys' presence. You guys are my mentors. So I always look up to you both, and thank you so much. So I'm very grateful. Yes, so So I was born and raised in Poland in the 80s, 90s. It was an interesting childhood growing up. The first phase of it was very blissful. That sort of a thing. I grew up in a very tiny little village, so there was a lot of freedom. Then we moved to a city. There was a transition in Polish environment from communism to capitalism. So there was a lot of friction and a lot of unknowns that go along with that. And my family certainly got the brunt of it and experienced it in a not so positive way. I moved to the States when I was 13 years old, went through traditional schooling. But if I may, um, elaborate a little bit on what you mentioned around grit and what makes me who I am today. So, growing when we moved with my family from the village to the small town, I was about 10 years old. And about the same time, again, because of the transition and the uncertainty in the environment, my mom decided to move out to America. I was 10 years old. My brother was 12. Uh, looking for a better opportunity, a better tomorrow for us and the family. And it was just me, my brother, and my dad for the next 3 years growing up in Poland. So, on the one hand, a lot of freedom, a lot of shenanigans from a young adult child, young teenager. But that was intertwined with a bit of difficulty, or maybe a lot of difficulty, looking back at it now, looking from the perspective of an adult to what a 10-year-old kid experienced, or 11 or 12, as we were in that time period. My dad struggled with some issues, and that left my brother and I at times a bit fending for ourselves. What that meant is we sometimes didn't have an opportunity to get back in the house. We got locked out. My dad maybe didn't come back for a night, and it was the first time in my life that I experienced overwhelming fear. I had no idea how to cope with it. I didn't even have any family to talk to because my grandma was an hour bus ride away. So you couldn't just go and see your grandma. Too embarrassing to talk to your neighbors about it. So it was certainly something that now, looking back, has a forever place in my mind and my heart and my soul. And it's not always a good thing because obviously it's fear-based. But at the same time, the good that I pulled out of it later on, not too much later on, it was sort of an immediate impact, is when I came to the States. And again, being an immigrant, no English, no father figure because my dad stayed behind, and the just complete culture shock, enrolling in school, in high school, and whatever comes with that, you guys can pretty much imagine, right? All the bullying, the ridiculousness because I'm a foreigner. I can't connect. I don't know how to behave. I don't know how to assimilate. But at that moment, that none of that bothered me because to me, it felt like I came down from the adult world to the kids' world. And I'm just here for the time being until I graduate and I move from one grade to the other. But I was just there assimilating on the outside, but none of this stuff really affected me because I was already conditioned. And I love what John mentioned before the call. I already had that cookie jar created in my life where I just reached in and I picked up, whatever experience I could relate to back in the past in Poland, and whatever was happening was certainly insignificant or very little. So that I'm talking about that because it sets up a lot of who I am today and how I make decisions, and that's my beginning of my story.
I love the beginning of the story, and I know we asked you to go a little deeper because we don't get to have guys of your level of success and your level of turnaround, right? I mean, so you're talking late 80s is the fall of communism, right? Isn't it 89 when the Eastern Bloc starts to break apart? So you have memory of that, which is, and you seem like a young guy actually. So it's amazing you have a visual memory of communism, and capitalism didn't actually work out at first for your family. That's even more interesting because you are a rabid capitalist today. when I think of you, I think of somebody who constantly puts together human talent teams and money and hard work and great ideas. As a matter of fact, later in the show, we're going to ask you to go through what you do now, where you buy deals. But I just want to thank you for that. What a perspective you have that we do not yet have. This idea of communism to capitalism, family structure challenges to now you have a beautiful family and your daughter and you are very close. Actually, your daughters, I think you have 2 daughters, correct? Yep.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I always see you and your oldest daughter, though, at the hockey games, right? You always. So anyway, I don't want to spoil the rest of your story. So thank you for doing that deep dive.
No, my pleasure. I think it was important to set the stage.
Yeah, and you set the stage really well. And for some of our listeners that don't understand the cookie jar reference, David Goggins made that kind of famous where he would go through struggles and take those memories and put it in a jar. So when he would go through struggles in the future, he could look back at what he had to overcome to get there. And that's what Kamil was referencing about the cookie jar. But so Kamil, okay, so now you're through high school. Where do you go from there? Because I know you start getting into construction, and then you find yourself, at a place, and I'm not going to give it up yet, at a place where you're like, you know what? I need to buy some books, and I need to learn, and I need to figure it out and scale.
Yes. So out of college, I figured I was going to become an attorney because by that time my dad was an attorney in Poland, and what's better than following in your father's footsteps? So I applied to law school. I took the LSAT, all that good stuff. Right about the same time, my mom, who already had about a 10-year-old siding business, approached me and says, "Do you want to help out with the business? Help me in the background, the office, the back office stuff." So I figured, yeah, let me do that for now. Let's see what the thing comes back from the colleges. If I get in, I'll make a decision. And then shortly afterwards, she decides to move to Florida because she wants to take a stab at building and selling spec homes down there, and says, "You know what, buddy? Here you go. You run with it, because otherwise I'll close shop. So you run with it. You'll pay me because I'm not just giving it to you." So it was actually my first acquisition without even knowing I was acquiring a business. Forced acquisition, let's put it that way.
That's awesome.
And there I am. Next 9 years, I am freaking like just grinding to the ultimate definition of that definition. Just doing everything in that business because I didn't know any better. I thought I was an entrepreneur, a business owner. Meanwhile, I was just self-employed, like really self-employed, having actually maybe 6 jobs instead of 1 for 9 years straight. And it was a hustle. It was hard. It was tumultuous, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I saw an opportunity. I felt it started to create a little spark of what might be possible. Maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It didn't seem like it, and I'll elaborate why not. But I felt I had something cool and something special, and I didn't have to go do a 9 to 5. So there was a little bit of that.
No, I mean, I think from that you actually, look, I imagine it was brutal for 9 years while you're grinding, but were there some glimmers of hope that made you want to stick with it? Like what during that 9 years made you go, this is right, I want to be a capitalist like this?
Nothing but the stubbornness of a Polak that I am. There was no glimpse of nothing, man. I wasn't making money. I couldn't save money. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't go on vacation because if I left, my business just grinded to a halt. And that brought me to a moment. I remember this is vividly in 2013, where I was actually also doing repairs. So not only selling, not only books, ARs, AP, all that great stuff, but also doing actual repair calls. And I roll up to this house. The roof is steep. It's like a 12 on 12 for those of you guys who know roofing. And I was supposed to climb a ladder to the peak, replace some shingles. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going up on that ladder right now. Because not only, can we curse?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I like how premeditated.
Am I scared shitless to go up on that ladder? But I'm like, this is nonsense. This is nonsense. This is not supposed to be me. I didn't do that repair. I got back in the truck and I left. And I actually, this is the true real story. I actually drove to Barnes and Nobles. Thinking about it now,
Wow.
thank
That's
God I
crazy.
drove to Barnes and Nobles because it makes for an amazing story.
It
But it
does.
is actually fucking true.
It's actually true. Like in a movie, this would be spliced together like 2 years worth of
Yes.
ideas. But you're saying it
Yes.
actually did happen that way. I love
Same
it.
day, same day. Yeah, and then I walk into the business section because I was fed up. I was frustrated with working extremely hard and not getting ahead. My business was not really growing; it was stagnant, and I knew that it's not because of lack of passion or lack of work. There was something else missing, and I didn't know what it was. So I went and I started just grabbing business books off the shelf, man. The E-Myth, Success Principles, all kinds of books, podcasts. And that was the beginning of my journey of discovery of what's possible.
How did you know what books you were getting? Did you just randomly make these decisions?
No, the first book that I bought that day, so this was a little fluff to the story, but the real story is I bought Investing for Dummies.
Hey, wow.
And I'm reading about type of wealth creation vehicles, right? You got your equity, you got your real estate, business ownership, commodities, and I'm like, wow, man, this is awesome. Like you can make money in different aspects of entrepreneurship, and I picked real estate because I still wasn't completely sold. No, let me rephrase that. I didn't have the example, real life example that business scale is possible. I only thought that happens on a big scale, publicly traded companies. Those conglomerates go big. Everything else is just a job. So I went into real estate and got it, and then I started listening to podcasts. And in the podcast that I listened to, the themes of E-Myth came across and different little Traction, the book Traction, Scaling Up, and those type of books that I obviously started reading, and that's how I started putting pieces together around business scale and business systems and processes.
And how long ago was that, Kamil?
So again, the journey starts in 2013. It was September, I remember, and not until probably for the next 4 years, till about 17, I'm just sponging. I'm just learning. I didn't take a lot of action. I bought a few real estate properties here and there, but it wasn't anything massive. And it was about 2017 when I joined a mastermind that things really took another step, went to another level. Why? Because all of a sudden I was in the room with people who have done it and are sharing the value and sharing their experience. And now I'm connecting two and two, and I can see that's possible. This dude is smart, but not that smarter than me. I can do it. And that's where it really took off for me.
I love it. No, I love it. And of course, we know a lot of the times we've spent with you at GoBundance, and you are a big advocate for GoBundance and masterminds probably like that because it did help you make it real. It made it fleshy and physical and real that someone you now know has done it. As a matter of fact, before we leave that part of all your struggle, and I love how you said there was nothing good that happened in 9 years. I never got like an extra big check once, and I thought, well, I'll fight for another big check. It just didn't happen. Anyway, I don't know what happened there, but you built human capital. It's like you're a billionaire of struggle and overcome without giving up. And that is what I look for. I don't know if you guys all look for that whenever I'm going to work with somebody. I want to make sure that they're substantial and that they have human capital to contribute to the project. So you definitely got that, brother. But John, I'll let you see if you want to go into his most recent cool things he's doing. But did you have a question?
Yeah, well, before that, I just kind of wanted to let our listeners know, and it's been amazing watching you and your journey, Kamil, because, what the listeners don't know is just in the last 5.5 years, the book right now by Dr. Ben Hardy is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. But so get that book. But in the last 5 years, Kamil has 10X'd his net worth. I mean, there's not many people that can say I 10X'd my net worth in 5 years. And I'm working on that right now. I'm about to turn 45. And in 5 years, I'm going to 10X my net worth when I turn 50. Well, my wife and I are, and that's a big goal of mine. But that's the moonshot, baby. But yeah, I mean, so how did you get that type of scale? Or Josh, if you want to do a deal deep dive, I think you want to do that. So why don't you take that away?
Feel free to answer it both ways, Camille. Like maybe share a comment, but then also, yes, please do a deal deep dive.
Yeah, and one leads right into the other because the scale doesn't happen until you hit the hockey stick curve, and there has to be an event here that happens that obviously accelerates the net worth growth. And for me, it was honing in on the existing scale of my business and acquiring a new business, and that's where everything explodes up. So, fast forward 2013, 17. Now we're into probably 2020. So about three full years ago, I made a bet to shy away from real estate. For now, I love it. It's still my passion. I'll be back there. But I have refocused into business growth and really, really trying to scale it on a very sophisticated level. So instead of buying real estate with all the profits that I made, I put it all back into business, into salaries, tech, strategy, and then not too long ago an acquisition. So when I built out the team, this is to answer your question, John, on how to get to the 10 million level. Is before then I couldn't value my business at all, because if I left, the business wouldn't exist. If I go on vacation, the business stops. But this is about 2020, 21, 2022. Well, actually 2020, 21. Now I have full systems, processes. I have people. So if I leave, a business is still running. I have a little bit of management staff. And now I can put a value on the business. Nothing too crazy, because this is still a mom and pop shop at that level, right? I think we are doing about $5 million revenues at that moment. So it's nothing extraordinary. But you could value it because you now all of a sudden are semi-removed. So now you have something that people can buy and elaborate on and create value for themselves. And it's like in real estate, right? Like a value add play. Fast forward, the more pieces you put in, higher level C-suite employees, all of a sudden it becomes a bit of a conglomerate, and your multiple of acquisition goes up. So if in the beginning you're maybe valued at 2x, 2.5x, because you're still mom and pop, if you got yourself a GM or maybe even a COO, all of a sudden you can talk about 3.5x, maybe even 4.5x. So net worth is a beautiful thing. I am not a strong advocate, believer, and one that's going to go around bloating about it, because to me, cash flow is king. So it's great that my net worth went up, but it could go down tomorrow to zero. So I'm not too hyped on it. But that's how I got to higher level multiples. Now, that whole journey in the 2020s sparked, and then again, another reinvention. I love to talk about reinventing myself, because I think that is the baseline for anyone's success. You cannot get to where you want to go if you're the person you are today. That is absolutely not going to happen, right?
Great point.
Yeah, absolutely. Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of self-development. I believe that is my man, not John Maxwell. Who the heck?
Oh, it is
Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn.
I was going to say Jim Rohn.
He is great,
yes.
by the way.
And this is like I should, you know what? I'm going to tattoo that on my chest when the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. Boom. I said it.
Damn, we heard it here.
And are you going to do it in reverse so you can read it on the mirror in the morning? Which direction will the letters be?
Very good point.
I've seen that before, so it's sad. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, it's all good. So here I am. And now my brain works around mergers and acquisitions, because that's the next step in my evolution, right? And when a friend brought a deal to me about a year and a half ago, well, now it's 2.5 years ago, of a commercial roofing company that was available for sale, private listing, I jumped on it. We started having a conversation with the seller. Amazing people, amazing seller, amazing person, really good person. We did talk for about a year and a half around it before we closed on it. And that was my big next opportunity.
I appreciate some really important things there. You spent a year getting to know them so that surprises people, for one. And I think you'll have to elaborate on why you did it that way. And then you said you did use a broker of some sort. How did you find it originally again? How did you find it?
Yeah, no broker. This was purely a pure example of what many people deny to believe, that the universe provides if you put it out there.
Yep. So you were telling
There's
people,
no other explanation around it.
by the way, I believe that that's one of our things we used to do on the show, John, where we'd say to Camille, what are you working on now? What do you want to just the law of attraction to bring to you? Because it will happen when you start to talk about it. So you're saying you were talking about mergers acquisition and it just showed up.
I'll go even a level freaking deeper on that, man. I wasn't even talking about it that much, and especially not to the person who brought it to me. He had no clue. But I just made that decision in my mind about a few months before that opportunity, when I heard a speaker talk on stage at a GoBundance event. I said, you know what, I'm going to get into that. Let me get into that. And I'm starting, what I do first is I start educating myself. Books, programs, all of it that I can before I start pulling the trigger. So I don't allow analysis paralysis, don't get me wrong, but I do want to set up a little foundation so I know what I'm talking about. And then a friend of mine comes to me and says, would you like to open a commercial roofing branch under your existing brand? And I was like, I would love to. I'm not interested, because a new commercial roofing company in the market has to fight for scraps, low margins. We're going to go out of business. We're going to get hurt. He says, all right, but I have a friend who already has a company and wants to sell it. So again, the universe provides, and that's how it happened. And the conversation got started.
Well, I also, because we talk about rhythms a lot on this show, and especially the rhythms of your morning and how that sets up. You know, we'd say, you know, if you win the morning, you win the day. And I don't know who said it, but that's a popular quote. So I know that you have a pretty extensive morning routine. Why don't we talk about that? Because we're talking about laws of attractiveness, right? We want to attract what we're going after. And how do you do that?
Oh, man, it's my favorite thing to talk about. I wouldn't be the person I am without my routine. It starts off at 5:30 in the morning. It's basically the foundation of it is your Miracle Morning concept by Hal Elrod. I love that book. I mean, that certainly changed my life for sure. And it's all around savers, right? So silent time meditations, affirmations, visualization, reading, exercise, although I exercise later in the day, and then journaling. It is beyond important to me. My meditation, I have discovered that I'm not the greatest in silent meditation. So now I use Joe Dispenza's a morning meditation that sets up your future vision. And to me, that the vision set up alongside with visualization that I look through my vision board is really what kicks my framework into gear every single day, because now I realign myself with the goal that I'm chasing every single day.
And how long is that visualization there, Kamil, that you do?
So all of it takes me about an hour and a half. I would say affirmations actually take me the longest, because my list keeps growing. So I hear something in the world that I resonate with, I put it on my affirmation list. So it takes me about 25 minutes to read my affirmations.
Really? Wait, hold on. That's amazing, by the way. Can you give us like one or two examples? Because not everybody even knows what that word means.
So affirmations basically is a written document or whatever that you should read out loud with a certain level of passion, with a certain level of energy, and in a very grateful state. And you're saying things as they have already happened, as you already are living them, and that sort of connects with your state, and it just puts everything in a very real perspective. For me, what as it evolved, and lately I've got this great thing going. I'm going to not pitch it, but plug it here. Is Time of Life by Tony Robbins. A guy recommended this app to me about 4 months ago, and I did the exercise. It's a 10-day, 90-minute a day exercise that you do on your app that walks you through realigning of your goal and your vision and your purpose. And you know, Tony, man, when he gets a hold of you talking about your purpose in life, God damn it, you're like, shit, man, like this.
You've
right?
done it,
So
by the way,
anyway,
right? You've done some Tony Robbins events in real
I've done
person.
a little Tony. I did the Day with Destiny.
Yeah.
So when I did the Time of Life, I turned that whole exercise that he puts you through I put it right in my affirmations. So now I do Time of Life every single morning.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it takes me so long, because that thing is kind of long.
I'm going to look into all of this because I see the energy coming through your heart and your eyes when you're talking on this podcast. So John, you know, can we also, I don't want to throw off too much of your flow, Kamil. Can you go a little deeper on the acquisition though? Because I know that's going to be something that everybody wants to download the show. You bought a company and you've closed on it, correct? It's done.
Yeah, it's done. It's coming up on a year in about 19 days. Year of post acquisition. An unbelievable journey, beautiful journey. I would not have it any other way. Actually, I believe my COO asked me last week. It was like, you know, because bottom line is it was beautiful, but it was hard, and it was scary, and it took probably 10 years of my life, which now I have to increase my supplement dosages in order to gain that back and work out even harder with John twice a day to gain that back. But that's what happened. But I wouldn't have it any other ways, because it sets the foundation for what I'm capable next. And what I'm capable next, I'm scared to say it, because, you know, the things you're going to do have to scare you. Yes. So anyway, what happened was, beautiful people, great seller. I bought the company, I was attracted to the company because of the team in that company. Everybody there had longevity, great culture. You know, everybody minimum was 15-year duration with the company. Great people. I connected with them throughout the year before acquisition. I wanted to get to know them as much as possible. The business industry obviously is great. They have a great client share. And all those things were very attractive and connected with me, because I do business with people. The only reason I am in business is to create opportunities for people in my world. Dollars and cents, those show up. And, you know, I know that because when I grinded for 9 years after I bought it from my mom, and there was no money, because I wasn't providing to people. I was providing to my clients, but the people, there was nobody in my circle. And once I started bringing people to my circle, all of a sudden I'm making money. And all of a sudden there's a culture forming. So that's what attracted me to that business. They already had some of that. So that's very important. It's very important to dissect the culture of the business, the way they work together, the way to communicate. And that's why it took me a little longer. I wanted to take my time. But that did not mean that I didn't made some horrendous mistakes. I still would have buy the company. I still would have, but it would prepped me, and I would maybe structure it a little differently, right? Some of these mistakes, right? The company was prided themselves on being a relationship company with a strong base of customers that always come to them, private work, not too much competition. And as I'm hearing all that, I'm like, great, but that's actually not a good thing, because your customer concentration is very narrow.
Right.
2 guys leave, all of a sudden you're in trouble. And guess what happens when an owner leaves of a company that he's very much involved in? Now you have a shaky customer base. Oh shit, what's going on? Right? So that was number one mistake. I mistook an opportunity for actually an asset for a liability. Okay. Vice versa, liability for an asset. And then you have to come to an acquisition, especially when you're buying businesses in the $1 million to $3 million range. I paid, well, I maybe shouldn't say. uh, when you come into these, smaller type of acquisition, you have to be prepared that there's going to be a lot of work around culture transition. And I'm not talking bad about the people in that company. They're unbelievable people with enormous talent, but they've done things a certain way, and introducing new concept is scary. It would be scary for me if I was in their position. So you have to take that under consideration when you're buying a business and hedge against it. What I mean by that is have maybe a little cushion on the payroll, on the acquisition, to bring in some help. Okay, or have those conversations with the existing team during, before the acquisition, and be real with them and say what you're going to do. I'm going to change the operating system. I'm going to bring in a CRM. It's going to be scary. You guys are going to think I'm fucking crazy. But trust me, when we do these implementations, it's going to help. And that's very important. I miss those conversations, those real down-to-earth conversations about what I was planning to do. Why? Because I didn't feel that it was fair for me to right off the bat come in swinging with all the changes that I wanted to make. But in the hindsight, I should have been more open about the changes that I'm looking to do. Because again, people fear a change, and it's not their fault. It's actually my fault, right? A few things that you want to look out for when buying a smaller business. Growth, right? You are buying it because you want to add value. You want to obviously grow the company. That company was at a certain level for many, many years. Any type of growth you want to introduce is also another huge disruptor to the existing culture. Yeah, so you want to set these things up. And there's also some technicalities, like maybe negotiating accounts receivables during the acquisition. I didn't do that, and I was running short on cash shortly after the acquisition. I guess more importantly, the biggest.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Tell me your final. This is great. I have a question after that.
The biggest piece of for me on the drawback was to make sure you have enough cushion on the EBITDA, meaning the net cash flow of that business, for you to bring in 3 high-level people day one. Even if you don't, you need to have enough room to bring them in, pay your debt service on the acquisition, and still have money left over. A lot of people make a mistake thinking, I'll get in there, I'll do for a little bit, I'll grow it, then I'll bring speed. No, you want to have enough room in the cash flow to have those positions ready to go.
Very wise, very wise. So the anatomy of this deal did it include bank debt, U.S., whatever, small business debt, or was it all personal note from the old owner?
No, I'm very skeptical about people when they say, I got 100% owner financing, because why would he sell if he doesn't want the money?
Right.
But anyway, I did a Live Oak Bank transaction for 80% of the deal. A Live Oak loan was backed by the SBA, so it's called an SBA loan, but it's actually with a bank. I put in 10%, and the owner carried back 10%. And
when you say it's an SBA loan, some people listening to the show are actually pretty sophisticated on this kind of topic. Otherwise, I'll go quick. Did that mean Live Oak funded it and then backfilled it with an SBA application, or did you have to wait 6 months like a normal SBA loan?
The former, right? Yeah.
Right. Straight
with the bank. Took us about, 90 days, probably less than that, and they backed it on their own time.
Did you know how you said you only had to come up with 10%, which sounds really nice, by the way, and then they held 10%. Are you, in your advice, in your 5 points or 6 points of advice, would you say, did you also bring a big working capital bank account on top of that for yourself to use to grow this business?
So the beautiful thing is, I should have negotiated the accounts receivable as part of acquisition to give me a little bit more breathing room with cash flow. That was mistake number one. But the beautiful thing about business acquisition in this instance, hopefully it's like that a lot of times, was that Live Oak wrote me a check for $700,000 of working capital.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I walked away with $400,000 in my pocket.
Right.
At the closing table.
Awesome.
That will blow my mind. Some other time you got to explain how you. I understand the words you're saying, but I am shocked. I am so grateful to learn this. This is why we do these shows, John. I didn't know that was even a possibility. Thank you, Kamil.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to come to the end here, and Kamil is, you guys, if you don't know Kamil, you should. That's number one. Two, he's one of the most well-traveled guys that I know. I think last year, did you travel 7 months out of 12? How many months were you traveling?
No, maybe not 7, but definitely at least 5 to 6 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's fun because I get to live vicariously through him and his family and whatever they're doing. So Kamil, where is one of the best places that you've been, or that you like to go to frequently?
So still haven't yet topped those two, and it's been a while. Mykonos, Greece is number 1 in my book, and the Amalfi Coast is number 2. I've actually been to Italy more times in the last 3 years than to my own country. So I don't know, I might have some Italian in me, but I love that country. The Amalfi Coast is freaking astonishing. Those 2 spots are top of the list. And yeah, we love to travel. We pulled my kids out of school for 5 years in order to travel around the world. But our trips are not long because, again, I'm building businesses. I'm doing all that. So we go away for, 4 to 7 days, those type of trips. And I still work, every morning I get on my calls and my leadership calls, all that good stuff. So I cannot relax. To me, life is fun, and work is not work. Building businesses is actually as enjoyable as sitting in the Amalfi Coast looking at the beautiful coastline. I could do both things and still be fulfilled.
Me too, brother. Well said.
Yeah, I mean, you are the example of living an abundant life, and thanks, you.
Man.
We're so grateful for your transparency on this show and everything that you've taught us. And we just wanted to find out, so how do our listeners connect with you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, just social media is probably the best. I'm on top of my messenger and all that stuff and the DM. So if anybody wants to connect, by all means.
Wonderful. We will follow up, and I cannot wait to see you in person again, buddy. You bring the energy and the passion. We love you.
I love you guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Damn straight. We just got we got to the end of another great show, and everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.